Hey, welcome to another episode of the Fit Growth Machine podcast. I'm Brian Roisentul, your host, and today I'm going to interview Sean Hall. He is the founder of Wellious, a fast-growing CPG startup that makes the cleanest plant-based protein powder that exists. He's also the founder of TOFM Media, which operates a portfolio of food and wellness publications that organically reach hundreds of millions of consumers. That's a lot. Before talking to him, let me tell you that this episode is brought to you by BSR Digital. At BSR Digital, we help e-commerce brands that want to scale their business to the next level through Facebook, Instagram, and Google Ads. Yes, even after the iOS 14 update, now more than ever, we need to understand that it's really important to level up the marketing and design a solid strategy, as what used to work doesn't anymore. So if your e-commerce brand lacks a solid plan and professional team to increase sales, we can help the same way we have helped more than 1,000 brands like yours for over a decade. To learn more, you can visit us at bsrdigital.com, and you can email us at hello@bsrdigital.com. Now, as promised, I have Sean here with me. Hey, man, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Brian. It's really great to be here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, man. So why don't you start by telling the audience more about you and your story?
Yeah, for sure. So I started my first company about 8 years ago. It's a fresh protein bar company. Um, we were doing cold logistics, cold shipping nationwide, kind of on-demand production. Made hundreds of thousands of protein bars by hand ourselves. But yeah, we started that with, I was young. There was really no money, no experience, no mentors, and just went into it with the mindset of let's give this a try. We built that into a good, small, profitable company pretty quickly. And then ultimately, we both kind of got busy with other side projects, businesses, work stuff. And so we just kind of kept it as efficient as possible, kept it small, ran it for the last 8 years. And we're actually in the process of selling it right now. And then somewhere in there, a couple of years into that, I started a side project, which would evolve into my second company, which is a media company. And I started a website called the Online Farmers Market. And the idea was to curate all these kind of better for you food and beverage brands, make it a discovery platform. People could come on and find stuff by dietary preference, different stuff like that, learn about these cool new brands, and then click over and support the companies directly on their own website. So it's kind of a marketing funnel for those brands. And ultimately, we started to grow like a pretty big online audience for that. So we evolved into an all-around publisher doing editorial content and recipe content and building newsletter type stuff and social stuff. And yeah, grew that audience, like you said, to hundreds of millions between a few different media properties that we run that are different brands for different niches in the food and wellness space. Some more newsletter focused, some more blog, some more social. And then main revenue stream for that is we partner with, brands in different advertising capacities. And we've worked with some of the biggest brands in the space, which is really cool. And then that leads me to Wellious, which is my main focus these days. And that was kind of born out of some personal health struggles I was having in early 2021, and just made me more wellness focused than ever before, just kind of that mindset of health is wealth. And I was just really paying attention to everything I was consuming because of that. And that happened to coincide with running out of protein powder, which is this product I've used for forever. When I went to go buy more, I turned over the package, make sure there weren't any ingredients I was trying to avoid. And I realized all of these ingredients I was trying to avoid were there. And the further I got dug into the problem, I realized like this is a huge problem in the health food space, and protein powder in particular. We're all kind of using this product with the intention of being healthy and the assumption that it's healthy, but it's actually, filled with these same ingredients that plague the junk food industry and snack food industry that we're trying to avoid, and things like ice cream and stuff like that. And so yeah, I set out to create something that was really clean. I really couldn't find many options that were clean, and the few clean-ish ones required a major sacrifice in taste and texture. A lot of the plant-based proteins, like I almost found inedible. So I tried to marry those two and make something that was still delicious, but really clean. And it was really hard, actually. But yeah, ended up making Wellious, which is, a 4-ingredient, only sweetened with monk fruit, one of the only products in the space that uses like actually real flavoring in the product. And yeah, people have really loved it. People have said it's the only protein powder that doesn't upset their stomach when they use it, which has been really amazing. And, really early in the Wellious journey still, but a lot of cool stuff has happened. We've got a lot of customers quickly and, definitely optimistic about where we're heading.
Okay, that was pretty interesting, and I have a lot of follow-up questions on that. So now, for you guys listening or watching, I'm really excited about this interview because Sean has a lot of experience in many of the topics that many DTC brands are struggling today, right? So we are going to cover them all, or we are going to do our best to cover them all in this interview. So the first one I love to cover is, product development, or how to, come up with a product and how to build a product that will that that your customers will love, and how to get that validation. When do you know that there's the famous product market fit, and how do you get traction, right? So you mentioned they sort of few companies. One, it's a media company. The other one is Wellious, and the other one was the nutrition bars, right?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So the first one, how do for everyone listening or watching that they're, let's say, going through that same thinking process, is like some of them might be thinking, oh, I'm going to build a product, but there are many out there. How am I ever going to stand out? So I imagine that when you created the first business, you weren't the first company in creating nutrition bars, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, there's, a lot of ways to answer that. But I think that for the first company, yeah, obviously having not started a product business before, now it's much more like in a mature state where there's a really good audit process, and I can get into that. But like for the first one, you really don't know. And my advice to people is like, really launch anything unless you have a lot of ideas and you're deciding between them. You're going to learn so much about building a business by launching anything. So it's important to do that instead of just spending weeks, years contemplating what's right, what's the perfect idea. There's no such thing. But with that one, yeah, it was kind of just an obvious problem solution type of thing. We saw protein bars as this major snack that people were eating as a healthy alternative, but most of the protein bars were like these shelf stable things that were filled with preservatives and could sit there for 3 years, which A, made them not taste as good just being with those ingredients. And then B, obviously had some health concerns with it too. And so we had come up with like a fresh, recipe that had some fresh ingredients, which just made the taste way better, made the ingredient list way better. And, we were naive to about how hard cold logistics would be and all of that. And that presented plenty of problems. But the value proposition was pretty obvious. Like if somebody eats this, they're going to like the idea that it's fresher and cleaner than what's out there. And when they taste it, 80% of people we think are going to be like, oh, I can't eat the other thing if this exists. And that's really kind of the feedback we got pretty early on. I remember starting that and people would say like, have you done any like market tests? Have you made the product and sampled it? And we really didn't. And I didn't really with Wellious before, besides a very little. I think intuition is important. And I think like I have a pretty harsh judge of like something that tastes good. Like I could not put something out that doesn't taste good. So I knew and we knew it was delicious enough. And obviously then we found that out once people started sampling it and really loved it. Yeah, as you get further along, and what you're doing a little bit as an entrepreneur, I think you start developing this auditing process of, I started the first company, I had the media company, and for, in that time of having the media company, I had other ideas of physical products, of food and beverage product ideas. But when I'd run them through this audit process of, can I create something that really solves the problem, et cetera, you also start thinking about things like, price point and average order value and shelf life and, all these logistics that I know make something either that much harder or that much easier to do. And it honestly, at a point, wouldn't be worth me starting, especially bootstrapping something, going for a product idea that had almost no margin or like not scalable production, Even when we decided to keep our first business kind of small, a lot of people were like, oh no, like you gotta, blow this thing up. And it was like, it's definitely possible, but the amount of work to do on-demand production every week, not be able to build any inventory, have a 3-week shelf life that has to be temperature controlled the whole time is, 10 times harder than starting something that doesn't, and still has the same amount of front end work to make it work. So that's really interesting. And then I think like making something people love, as you get further along, I think if you're like just starting out or all you care about is making money or something, you could pick any product, especially you see this in the supplement space. It's like, okay, well, let's just like make a new protein powder. We'll hire whoever we'll hire this co-packer and say, hey, just develop us this whey protein. We really don't care too much about it. And then they just create a brand and go out there. And it's certainly a way to build a business. You just have to have a marketing edge. I'm much more interested in businesses that are built out of a problem solution type of thing. Like, I really developed this from scratch with very strict criteria of what it needed to have to solve my problem. And so I think you end up with a very different product in the end, in that it's innovative and it's actually going to help people, and it's not like exactly like something else that's out there. And I think that still has to be combined with great branding and marketing and sales and all that stuff. But at its core, I think that it gives you an advantage if you're like, and it helps you find that true product market fit, when you're actually solving a problem and you're actually motivated by that problem. And that shines through in the end.
Yeah, I was going to say what you said at last, which is like, if you're not really passionate about what you're doing, if you're not in control, in the of the main areas of, I don't know, product development, the ingredients, or if you don't have a clear mission, a clear reason, why you're doing this, why people will love the product or products you're building, then probably you will get this far. I mean, how much can you grow like that? Because now probably we can start talking about the rest of the topics, because it's aligned with what I'm going to say now, which is, how on earth are you going to build a community? How on earth are you going to build a brand that lasts? How are you going to get positive feedback? How are you going to keep people engaged and coming back for more positive referrals? So it's pretty hard to get all of this that is really required for, let's say 2023. And of course before, but if we're talking about the current scenario of e-commerce, I don't know if you agree, but if you don't have a solid, I mean, we as an agency have worked for many drop shipping e-commerce brands, and there's nothing wrong with drop shipping, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it's that equals to getting some products in China or whatever, and then building a simple Shopify website. They don't care about anything else. Some people do care, some people don't, but I would say most that I run into, they don't. So they have gotten some momentum during COVID and even before, but now things are not like that anymore. People are not smarter, but they have learned so many things of buying online, the good things, the bad things, who to buy from and who not to, buy from. So do you think that you can have a solid, let's say, online business or business if you don't care about all the areas?
Yeah, I think that it's, I think entrepreneurship is hard enough. I can't personally imagine it if I just didn't give a crap about what I was selling or didn't believe in it full-heartedly. Even when you do believe in it full-heartedly, there's still all kinds of doubts. Even if you like have created the best product on the market, and I have friends that have created amazing products, like we all have so many doubts, and it's like sometimes hard to sell yourself and the product, that if like 100%, like I'm just buying this from wherever and it doesn't whatever, and it's just an opportunity. For me, that would just make it so much more difficult, less fun. I think a big part of the state of media and marketing these days too which has really come about in the last 6 months more than ever, is like that idea of storytelling, the founder's journey, incorporating that in scalable and non-scalable ways. And if your journey is just, I saw the search volume for this is high, and I, then just started sourcing that product from someone that already makes it and white labeled it and sold it, it's just not as interesting. And not that I don't I'm super passionate about entrepreneurship. So anyone starting any kind of arbitrage of any kind is super cool to me. And I think it's interesting. And if you have a clear plan, I'm going to build this to $1 million and make a living for myself. No, there's no disrespect there at all. But if you're talking about really building a business and incorporating that storytelling into it, which is almost necessary to create real brand these days, it almost has to happen out of a little bit of serendipity of, why you created the product and it mattering. And if it's not the truth, if that didn't just happen to you, then you almost need to manufacture it together, because, there's too many products being created every day. If there's not some kind of compelling reason to talk about yours, it just won't matter as much.
Yeah. So one step along the way, when you build a brand, is to build the products, but then you need to do all the rest. And talking about marketing stuff right now, the fun part, well, building a product is fun too, right? But it's mainly, everyone is talking about, or many people are talking about building a community right now, only that most of those people don't really know how to build it, or they haven't built a community in their life. So it's really important nowadays. Everyone is talking about owned media, media that you own. It could be a community in a Facebook group. It could be in Slack. It could be in another website. It could be, your own newsletter or email list. It could be customers. It could be people who are subscribed to learn more. So how do you start building a community nowadays?
Yeah, I think, it's the first ingredient to it is definitely intention. It's definitely about knowing why you're building it, knowing who's going to be in that community, what do they have in common. Are you building it because you're interested in that space and you generally want to build around it, or you just think you need a community for XYZ. But I think if you have the right intention, which most creators or brands at least know what the intention should be, so you find that, and then it's really tactical. I think that's something that the media company taught me. It was all about, content distribution. And I think it's a really interesting thing, because these days everyone's a creator and there's so much good content, and what's good is really, subjective. And so it comes down to what I learned with that is, tons of people were creating recipe videos, whether they're individual food bloggers or just Instagram creators, or, big publishing sites, or the biggest media companies in the world, or food product brands. Nearly everybody is creating recipe content, but some recipes that are just as good as other ones, some recipe videos get 11 views, some get 130, some get 13,000, some get 2 million, some get 10 million. And some of that is luck. Some is oh, I just put it out, it happened to take off. But there's a lot of videos that are equally as good, thousands that are equally as good, that get those different variances. And it has a lot to do with content distribution and understanding the different platforms and what makes them tick, and trying a lot of different stuff. We would have a lot of videos that we would put out, and at the time the obvious platform was Instagram or YouTube. We would get a few thousand views on one of those channels, and we would get millions of views on Pinterest, which would be somewhere that no one's paying attention to. And so it was a lot of that company let me just live and breathe in all these different platforms, because that's all the company was. It's just creating content, distributing content, and building audience. And so it starts with obviously reaching people. Then the other part of it is starting to understand how to retain people. Okay, so if this video reaches 1 million people, well, where is the best way to drive them back to a website, which is somewhere I can interact with them? If I drive X amount to the website, how do I get, 5%, 10% of all of their emails or some way to interact? Or, and then how do I start going back to, you know, part of those people follow us on social media? Because at the end of the day, you have to have this own communication with them. They have to be on an email list or following you, or you have to have their phone number. Like there has to be some kind of, you know, actually community being built. And so for all of that, you know, I think that there's no just like obvious, how do you do it, as much as like, you just have to try a lot of stuff. You have to kind of live and breathe in those different channels. The opportunities are definitely there. And you have to create content that matters to people. But like I said, it can be, you can't get discouraged if you're like, well, I think I'm creating really valuable wellness content, but it's only getting seen by this many people. And my Facebook group only has 28 people in it. Because it doesn't mean you're not creating valuable content. You might just need to, okay, I've created this video of me talking, or this, you know, article that I wrote that I just think is like amazing. Spend the time figuring out how to distribute that and get more eyeballs on it, where you get enough where you say, okay, it actually did impact enough people. And now I know how to drive them back to my Facebook group. And now we have more people, and, you know, spend time in that portion of it. And then I think it's, you know, if you start getting a community, if you have 28 people, if you have 200 people, you have to really respect that. Like you might in your head be like, you know, I need 10,000 people, I need 100,000 people. But it's like 28 people or 200 people decided that they do like what you're putting out there, and they do want to be a part of it, whether they love your product or they love you as a media brand or whatever. You know, interacting with them, really responding to them, listening to what they want, like that is your community at that point, however small it is. And if you don't understand them or don't give them enough attention, it's not going to matter if you have 5, 10 times as many people. So community building is just, it's a lot of work on all ends. It's having the right intention. I really want this community because of X, for myself, for my brand, whatever. And then it's a lot of work to create for them, to build it, and to retain them and build that relationship with them.
Okay. Do you recommend any, I don't know, a specific platform for your community? Or, I mean, it could be Facebook, it could be Slack, or it doesn't matter, I mean, nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, email is a really good place to build a community. It's not as much, where they can speak to each other, but it's a great place for you to constantly communicate and them to be able to communicate back. I think that that's a really strong place that a lot of people have built community and continue to build community. Something that's a little more interactive. I mean, Facebook groups for a long time have been a great place. I think the demographic on Facebook in general skews older. A lot of people my age are definitely not on that platform as much, not on Facebook groups as much and stuff like that. But a good active Facebook group, you won't see that kind of engagement anywhere. So if you can build one where you really own it, that's amazing. You can just participate in them for really great consumer insights. I think there's a lot of, interesting stuff you can do there.
Okay. I'd love to talk about customer acquisition and retention now. So what's working for you guys with regards to customer acquisition? Because, many people listening, they do have an e-commerce brand as well, and they are here to also learn about what's working for, in this case, Wellious, if it's, I don't know, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or if it's maybe something else that's working great for you guys. It could be a channel, or it could be a different strategy. I don't know, doing a quiz, or I don't know, a funnel type or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, for Wellious, so we're early for sure. And so the strategy so far has been doing a lot of different stuff and seeing what works. And I did this the other day. It's probably good exercise for people, but I made a little diagram and I had a circle with what really works, and another circle with what's super scalable, and then obviously an overlap. And there wasn't much in that overlap category. I think one thing maybe fell in there, and it's like a kind of, so there's things that are definitely working, but they aren't that scalable. They're something you can do, maybe once a day, or maybe like luck has to strike a little bit and it's just a consistent output thing. And some things are really scalable, which is more on like the paid ad sides, but getting them to just like perform, especially off the bat or with low budgets when you're bootstrapping, is they're not really working, not just yet. So what I've been noticing for a lot of brands that I'm paying attention to in the CPG space that are winning and winning in a short amount of time, whether they're well funded or kind of funded, they're doing a little bit of everything. Like, I'm not seeing too many people focus on one exact strategy and that's it. Pretty much the people I see winning are doing, they're seeding a ton of product to influencers. They might be doing partnerships. They might be doing affiliate programs. But no matter what, they're definitely sending, gifting, whatever product to a lot of creators, influential people, whoever they can. They're chasing down press. They're either have a PR agency getting press for them, or they're trying to build it themselves, and then they're building buzz on top of that press as they get it and pushing it across all their channels, maybe running ads against it. They are running ads, whether it's on Amazon, on social, on YouTube, all different stuff. They're producing a lot of organic content across multiple channels, pretty much all of them. I do think that, finding what kind of works for you is an interesting process that it's not even across the board anymore. Like, for some people, TikTok's been amazing. Like, that's really where they've driven the initial buzz for their business. And for some people, even though they're doing well there, it's not where they're acquiring customers. It's not, they might have figured it out, but it's not actually a customer driver. It's kind of a brand awareness thing. Some people are running paid ads on social just to drive a lot of awareness, and some people are acquiring customers that are really good, acquisition costs there. And I'm seeing the same thing for us too. It's definitely like, somehow we have gotten thousands of customers in a short amount of time, but I don't have a clear, like, this is the one thing that works 10 times better than everything else. Like, let's shut everything else off and focus in on this. It's a little bit of a mix of, like, people are seeing it a few different places, and some of it's just untrackable. It's like, you acquired this person, you can't exactly tell why. Maybe it was these things. And then other people you acquired, or from them telling somebody in real life. So I honestly I see things that work better than others. I think vertical video, there's so many places to distribute it right now. You have TikTok, you have YouTube Shorts, you have Reels, you have Facebook Reels, you have Pinterest, and the same kind of content, is working on all of those. So it's worth creating that, pushing it across all of those platforms and seeing where it picks or pulls. But it might even do well, and that might not relate to too many customers. I think Amazon as a channel, that's where we're seeing success, and we're seeing a mix of organic success and paid success, even though the paid portion is a small part of what we're doing right now. I think, like, we are seeding product and getting press and stuff like that, but that's more of a, I haven't seen something that directly relates to just a ton of sales right from doing it. It's a little bit here and there. So yeah, I don't know. I think I definitely notice, like, I'm just trying a lot of stuff and it's all working somehow together, but there isn't a clear channel. Like, I've seen 3-4 years ago where it's like, you could just do Instagram ads and that's it. There was a time when I was doing Pinterest ads and it was like, this is by and far the best thing that's happening right now. Yeah. Or like, Instagram is the only social channel. Like, here, if you can build on there in 2015, you kind of crush it. It's definitely different, and I notice that from like, as I pay attention to other people, they're definitely, it's a broad strategy kind of approach.
Yeah, exactly. I agree 100% because, as things have evolved lately, this is something that many brands can relate to. They are going through the exact same thing. We speak with a lot of owners, founders, and marketing directors, and the brands we work with too, and they're all going through the same thing because we have been, let's say, taken away the let's say the knowledge on what comes from where. So in this case, where are we getting the sales or traction from? since iOS 14 update in, I think, late April 2021. Slowly, we started to see a decrease in the information we receive. And whereas before there was, I think, a slight, discrepancy between the actual
Mhm.
or real results, let's say, and the ones that we used to see in the platforms. Now it's probably we see 50% or so. What I mean in the platforms of the real information that we see on the back end, whether that's Shopify, WooCommerce, or anything else. So it's important to two things. First, I don't know if it's mandatory, but it helps to have an attribution system. There are many out there. To mention a few: Triple Whale, Hyros, Rockerbox, North Bay,
Mhm.
so on. You can use Google Analytics too, right? Well configured, not the default configuration, right? To track what comes from where. But talking about the attribution to find like the main responsible for for something to happen, let's say for conversions, or the only one, I think it's a lost cause, and it's like chasing the sun in a way, because the reality, if I let's say if I wear blue lenses or green lenses or red lenses, I will see life in different colors. So this is the same thing. It's not about chasing what we cannot, um let's say chase. It's about trying to understand from different perspectives the reality, because it's like, who recommended this movie, or who told me to watch this TV show? It was my brother, it was my friend, it was my wife, it was like many people told me that. But
Mhm.
what what made me watch the movie? Again, my brother told me, Brian, you should watch this movie. My wife said, Brian, in this movie, this I don't know, this famous actor is there in the movie. And the other one told me this movie is about the exact thing you like. And this
Mhm.
whatever. Probably was a message, but probably was that when my brother first told me that, I was in the middle of the ocean in a ship or in a plane or wherever. I was commuting, I was working, and I didn't pay attention. So the user journey
Mhm.
has been way more complex. I think the average, I don't know if this is accurate, but I think the average is around, I don't know, 12 touch points between the user and a brand. So it's a lot. So there's no one responsible for you to make a purchase. There are many. So that doesn't mean you shouldn't, as a brand or marketer, track. That means that you shouldn't go
Yeah.
crazy and say, oh, let's find the main thing. It's like, as you said, maybe we're going crazy about, okay, what's working and what's not. And we can say for first touch attribution, for the first interaction, this is what's working best for raising awareness, for bottom of a funnel, for middle of a funnel, for you can test different things and work in projects of testing different things for, I don't know, engaging people after they bought or for whatever. This is the platform that's working best. That's awesome, but it's not the one platform that will do the trick as before. And I think, as you said, you should go on like omni-channel. They should be in different channels, because I don't know, in the old days, people were hanging out in Facebook and Instagram. There were some exceptions, of course, let's say Pinterest, but for doing ads, let's say, now there are many, and all of them complement each other. You don't find the same people in TikTok and on Instagram or in Pinterest. It's not the same for a brand to do something in one or in the other. For
Yeah.
instance, we see a lot of success for brands doing TikTok ads, but they do have products, I don't know, below the $20 um price point. They are targeting Gen Z or millennials or what. So they do TikToks and not ads. There's a difference. So they do have something going on there that's cool. But if you sell I don't know, a $500 product, you can still have some success, but it's not ideal for TikTok. Whereas for
Yeah.
Facebook, probably it targets an older demographic, or Instagram and blah blah. So you need to see where your audience is hanging out, and doing a huge level up on the creative side of things, on the ads, which is something that people used to ignore, right? So people used to create ads, like average ads. Many brands didn't, but many brands used to create some, I don't know, random but average ads. And now
Yeah.
they cannot laser target their audience anymore. There aren't
Mhm.
many levers in the ad account as there used to. So now they need to level up the marketing. Now they need to, you know, uh, be strategic about the message for each level of the funnel, to partner up with influencers, and to get out of their, let's say, office and find people to partner up with, whether it's media, influencers, or everything that you said. So I agree 100% with you.
Yeah, no, that's all great. I think there's definitely value in being an expert on a certain channel. Like I definitely think it's a good strategy to be like, oh, I'm not going to go crazy with, I'm almost like, I almost know too much from running the media company that it's a little like, there's too much stuff I want to try because I know it can all work. I know SEO works. I know paid ads work. I know organic content works. Like, so, but if you don't have that experience, I think, it's hard to be an expert in all those things. So just going hard on TikTok, at least for a portion of time, taking, a couple months, and that's all you do is just learn about it, observe what other people are doing, crank out content, consistency, quality, everything you can. And, that can often work a lot better than just being barely anywhere, a lot of places. But a little more mature marketing strategy, like if you're really trying to grow and you want stuff that can be long term and not just completely dependent on one thing. Even TikTok has changed a lot in the last 8 months. A lot of people that were crushing it 8 months ago, it's not as good for anymore. So if it's more that, then that's when it gets a little more multi-channel. And yeah, you have to, I agree, just test and try. And I think it's, definitely what you're saying with it's part attribution, not being able to track as well as we used to be able to. And then I think consumer behavior is definitely just changed. There's more products, there's more content. People see, there was a time when Instagram stories was like, most people saw them and it's like someone really influential puts a link on there and it's like it could drive hundreds of new customers, one story, like no problem. And like now you could get a major influencer to post, a whole thing about you and it might drive 7 customers. And it's not that they're not influential anymore necessarily. It's just like now their followers they follow 240 people just like that who post 72 stories every day, and they've seen 19 different new food and beverage products in the last 2 weeks. And so I think it's like, yeah, like you said, it's the 12 touch points starts making sense, and it's a great analogy with the shows because that's definitely like, I'm a consumer of television shows, and it's definitely like you hear it from here. You saw something on Instagram about it, you saw an ad for it here, you heard about it from a couple people, and then you still don't watch it until you finish your last show and you go on Netflix and it happens to be the thing that populates and you're like, oh, I've been wanting to watch this, and then you do it. And products aren't any different. And it's interesting because like sometimes I do see like someone will post or something will happen for us and it's immediate, like we get customers that buy that. They must have just heard about it and they come buy it. But I think it's those direct response interactions that you get. Even I see this through our newsletters that we run in the media company. At a point it's like you could put an ad and advertisers would want, hey, I want 3% of people that click through to convert, or whatever. And I think it's just changed where it's like people don't really just hear about something. They had got to already be so low in the funnel. Like they're looking for a protein powder that they just heard about. And that's all it took for them to like go over and spend, $32 on it. So yeah, I don't know. It's definitely, I enjoy that. I mean, you're a marketing person, so it's like, I've always liked the challenge of it and it's changed, but there's still so much opportunity. It's not like there's not opportunity to reach people. It's just a little more complicated because the platforms are more mature and the consumers more mature and there's more products out there. So you just have to be a little smarter. And
yeah, sorry to cut you off. Please
continue.
continue.
Oh no, you're good. Oh no, I think that was I was just saying, yeah, that was about it.
So in under 1 minute, I have a background in computer science. I used to be a developer for many years. I studied that as well. And one parallelism between computer science and advertising, or today's era of doing business for DTC brands mainly, but for most of them really, is that it's a good practice when you design a piece of software or an app or whatever to plan on paper, not to go straight to code from the requirements. So you receive the requirement. Okay, so you want an app to do like an Instagram like app or whatever. So let's do an app like Instagram, but we start coding. It doesn't work like that. We do scope of work, we do diagrams, we do user flows, and many other use case scenarios, many things to make it scalable, solid, good, and we validate many things along the way. Here, it's like, okay, so we need to promote this. Okay, let's do an ad, let's design this. So you, please, designer, do this, influencer, promote this, and we will run the ad and do it. It's like, whoa, what's the strategy? Do you have you
Yeah.
have you actually created good avatars, but for real? Have you updated them? Do you do, I don't know, post-purchase surveys? Do you know who they are? Do you have your customer support department connected to your marketing department to actually do the things like to do marketing, right? So do you, think outside of the ad platforms or email platforms? So like as a business, do you know your unit economics or your numbers? So to know your margins, how much you can spend to acquire a customer, your LTV, which is really fussy for many entrepreneurs as well. It's like, okay, so I don't know that, but I hired you to do the apps or whatever, but they don't know that. And many brands don't realize that now without that, it's not impossible, but it's really hard and definitely more expensive to be successful, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why, I mean, marketing is always, before you start, as you're starting, obviously product development is everything, and building the production and fulfillment infrastructure and sales channels, and that's it. But once you open your doors, it's like marketing is that big complicated part. It's, sales is more straightforward. You find the right people and you talk to them. The production becomes, okay, let's just, how do we produce more of this? How do we lower costs? How do we make sure the UX is good? But it's a little more straightforward. But the marketing, like you said, that has to do with everything. That's, you, and it's really sales to customers individually, but all of that's driven by marketing these days. And yeah, understanding all of those unique economics and, you know, every, all the math behind it, all the lifetime value, and, freight to, average order value ratio and your shelf life and all that stuff starts really playing into, is my model for marketing, a longer term? Is this a repeat purchase product? Do I have is the average customer going to spend $1,600 a year on this, and thus I can lose X amount on my first order? Or is this most people are one-time, two-time purchasers on a $16 product, and I already have tight margins and after shipping and everything else? Like, if I don't find a $4, new customer acquisition channel, this business model, at least in D2C, doesn't make sense. And if that's the case, then do I need to raise X amount to at least build up my first 5,000 customers, so that's the base, because then we can turn, that acquisition off and we have those people that are ordering and enough foundation. And yeah, a lot of people, that affects how you do the front end of what channels you're going after. Is your strategy mostly organic because that's all you can afford? I mean, if you bootstrap a company and start from nothing, like, you don't have the paid budgets and you can't have this super complex thing. It's either scrappy stuff that works and starts acquiring, 50 customers, 100 customers, 200 customers, or you don't have a business, which is very different than if you raise early on, or if you have like a really high, average order product, then you could start spending, on our marketing, on paid channels, and you can know, and then again, it goes back to knowing, can I spend all of this margin on this? Can I spend more than this? Can I lose money on this? How long should I lose money for to acquire a certain amount of customers? It's definitely very complicated at all touch points, all the way to the top of what content you're going to create, to the bottom of, does that model even make sense, even if I am acquiring people the right way?
And a last conversation, a last question for you. Sorry, this was very interesting already, but the last question I like to ask every guest that comes on the show is about their favorite, if they have, I don't know, any favorite book It doesn't need to be a business related book. It could be something else, or a mentor they want to give them, I don't know, a shout out to, or someone they follow, or someone that has helped them along their way or their career. And by the way, for you, Sean, and for you guys listening or watching, we have put together in December a list of books recommended by the guests, as you are about to do now, if you do recommend the book. So we will do the same this year. And of course, you will be able to grab the resource if you recommend any from the show notes. So yeah, I'm all ears. Do you have anything to recommend to the audience?
Yeah, so honestly, I won't be able to add to that list. I haven't read a full book in a very long time. I do a lot of reading, but it's a lot of short form. But something I tell people, because a lot of people ask me for podcast recommendations, and there's definitely, that's something I really like as a really good source of information and sort of a, mentorship. There's specific ones that I listen to, but a piece of advice that I think is really helpful to anyone is what I've done for a long time is I'll look at other brands specifically in my space. I'll think about, the brands that I think are doing really well. If you don't know who the founder is, Google founder of XYZ company that's in a similar industry as you. Look up that founder and type that founder's name into Spotify and just go under podcasts. And, it'll populate usually 5-6 podcasts that feature that founder. And then you can pick anyone, you can listen to all of them, look through them and figure out which one maybe is most applicable to you. But that's just like an hour of the person who is like, would be an ideal mentor to you, just spilling their guts about, how they built their business and why they built it and good advice in between. And I think it's like just a really good hack that I've gotten so much information, and that keeps me super interested because it's just like the most relevant podcast I could, think of.
That's great advice. Thank you for that. So it was a pleasure to interview you. It was a really interesting conversation, and I can keep going for hours because we can discuss many interesting things based on your experience. So I appreciate your time. So where can people go to learn more about you and your company?
Yeah, so follow Wellious on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. It's at wellious.co. And then for me personally, in the last year, I've started to post to LinkedIn a little more. The personal brand thing's weird for me, but I'm doing it. So LinkedIn, Sean Hall, founder of Wellious. I've been trying to keep some good updates on business stuff there. And yeah.
Awesome. You guys listening or watching, head on over to fitgrowthmachine.com. You will find the show notes there. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you won't find the full notes to get all the resources mentioned here in this conversation. So head on over to fitgrowthmachine.com, find the episode, and there you will find everything that you need. Sean, you've been great. Thanks for being here. It was a pleasure.
Thanks a lot, Brian. Pleasure's mine.